to all of our listeners, we are here as Tricord Advisors. We're a growing business, and I know many of our listeners are as well. And so one of the strategic investments that we have made as an organization is in executive coaching. It has been impactful on a personal level, on a professional level, on a staffing level. We've really seen just the infiltration of some of these methodologies and these principles in our business and in our personal life. And so we work with a company called Novus Global, and their input has been fundamental in our visioning and our execution of that vision. So today, what we're talking about is a concept that really came up during this process of executive coaching. It's a concept called limiting beliefs. And so to unpack this conversation, we just thought it would be essential to bring in somebody who is really an expert at walking people through identifying what their limiting beliefs are, and more so how we move beyond them. And so for this conversation, I could think of no one better than Laura Lyng. We're so pleased to have you here. Laura Lyng has been my executive coach personally for the last several months. I'm looking forward to another year of working closely with her. She also works with just a gaggle of excellent executive coaches there at Novus Global. Laura herself is an executive coach and a speaker. She has worked on an international executive coaching level with a variety of different Fortune 500 companies, business leaders, lawyers, athletes, etc. One interesting fact is prior to becoming an executive coach, Laura served as a corporate trial attorney to several Fortune 500 clients around the globe. And so she's used to being a leader and a strong voice in the room. So Laura, welcome. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here, and I love this topic, so I can't wait to dive in.
Yeah, I think it's near and dear to many of us, some that don't know yet that it is. So I'm hoping this plucks some heartstrings with some of our listeners. But just to lay the foundation, can you just share a little bit around this concept of limiting beliefs?
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea is that most of us, all of us, are walking around with these limiting beliefs that we have in our head about ourselves, about the world, about other people. They're beliefs that sound like things like, I will never be as successful as my neighbor. I can't do my job and be a parent well at the same time. The world has never experienced as much chaos and disorder as it is experiencing right now. So you might just think of limiting beliefs as thoughts that you have, and particularly thoughts that keep sticking around and coming up and are repetitive for you, that really you can see that they would get in the way of the things that you might vision for your life that are expansive and exciting and off in the future. So you have this big vision, and then you have these beliefs that seem to get in the way of that thing that you want.
Yeah.
That's so good. I think when I first heard this idea, I was going through coaching with another coach at Novus as well, and the idea of limiting beliefs, I had a hard time naming what is this, but as we walk through it, it's like, oh, these are just beliefs. These are just beliefs that I think about the world, and they feel even like protective. Like, I'm not going to swing for that. That's not for me. I'm not going to do that. This is just the way the world works. This is the way it is. And putting that name on it, say this is a limiting belief, and caused me to look at these things I was believing. Are they actually true? I thought they were true. I assumed them to be true. And in fact, they seem so, of course they're true, that why would I even question them? But once we started actually looking at them, and with the help of kind of the Novus team of identifying a few and poking at them, realizing like, I just made that story up, either for good reasons or bad reasons, but I just made that up, and now I'm living into that. And it was a good moment of like, maybe I don't have to. Maybe that's not true.
I think you bring up such a good point, which is that before you're really introduced to this concept of limiting beliefs, we all just believe them to be beliefs, and we all just believe them to be true. And for me, it felt like there was this like soundtrack going on in the back of my mind, self-talk, sometimes external, like sometimes it was things that I would say. One of my favorite limiting beliefs that you helped me discover was, Jeremiah used to tease me about this for years. In more stressful moments of my day, I would literally kind of mutter like, I'm okay. And by like the 10th time I would say that, he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. It was like,
right.
this, like this soundtrack that somebody just kept hitting repeat on every day. Well, of course it's like that. And it kind of leads to like just kind of a bitter sentiment, like, well, yeah, because that's just the way it is.
Yeah. What do you think you were responding to? So you would say out loud, I'm okay, I'm okay. And I'm guessing there's a thought that's actually, or a belief that's happening that you're responding to with I'm okay.
Right.
What would you say that belief is? What were you answering?
It's like it's like the polar opposite of literally feeling like I'm not okay. Something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I need help. Or, it's
like
wrong, I think of the movie Inside Out with like the little people running around in your brain where like the little fiery guy is like, I'm angry, I'm mad, something is wrong. But you're trying to contain it, or it's messy, or you're not ready to address it. It's almost like a self-soothing mechanism. Like I could be sitting in the fetal position, or I could be just telling myself, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay.
Yeah. I'm telling myself I'm okay because I have this belief that I'm not okay right now, or I have this belief that something is wrong that's following me around. And the most dominant conversation that all of us are in throughout our lives is the conversation that we have with ourselves in our head, right? You might have all kinds of other voices and other inputs, but often we don't notice that the conversation that's impacting our decisions, our behaviors, our emotions is actually that running tape, as you called it, that soundtrack that's happening. And we haven't taken the time to actually slow down and be like, what is that soundtrack? What am I listening to actually all of the time? And what is it creating? So that's a space where a coach really helps you slow down and kind of actually put words to the soundtrack.
Which is so like such a good illustration to play on that for a minute, because how often do we like, a song will come on the radio and you're like, I love this tune. And what you love are the notes, but maybe you haven't like tuned into the actual lyrics. And then you get to know the lyrics and you're like, oh, I never knew it said that. Oh, I never knew the song was about that. And I for sure felt this like slow down, pay attention, 100% intentional practice of like, whoa, slow down the soundtrack so you can actually hear what the lyrics are saying. And I mean, it was fairly surprising. So anyways.
Yeah, I felt kind of when I was going through kind of and still am, going through that idea of limiting beliefs, I was amazed at how much of this was a jujitsu for my day-to-day feelings. Like this was probably one of the ones, some things take work and time and effort and change. There's some of these that it was just like turning a little bit of switch and being like, oh, that's just different from now forward forever. That's just a little different. I would give a quick example. I think sometimes when I walk into a big room of people, just different responses, Laura would kind of light up like, oh, I get to meet all these people. My limiting belief in that was, hey, everyone's having a good time, having a good conversation. They're fully content where they are. And if I were to say hello to them and I didn't really know them, I'm probably interrupting them, and that probably messes up their day. Is kind of what I walked through. And so with that, it's kind of a room where you'd say, hey, if I know a person, but everyone else, everyone's really happy just where they are. That made it really hard for me to, meet a new person, be friendly, to someone else. But the limiting belief was that belief. The flip on that, which I worked with Joseph Barkley, he's my executive coach, we worked through this. And it was like, we got to a point of saying, well, what if everyone in that room is desperate to meet someone like you, of some of my background, the things I do, like, what if they were just in their personal life, just waiting for someone like you to meet, and they don't even know how to find you. They'll never meet you otherwise. And you walk up to them and all of a sudden they say, oh, I've been waiting to meet someone like you. Can you help me? And me as a kind of a helper personality on a regular basis, that became kind of rocket fuel to walk into a room like that and say, hey, just very candidly, hey, this is what I do. And some will say, oh, that's great. Others had that experience where they'd say, oh, I've been looking for someone who's a financial planner or a lawyer or an estate planner. Come here for a second. Let me talk to you. Let me come be my friend Bill. And it was really resourceful. So walking into a room, I kind of have that mantra, that new belief that says, hey, someone here is desperate to meet me. And I walk in and, people could take it all different ways. For me, I naturally kind of sit in more of the humble side. So it was a good push to say, hey, someone here wants to meet me versus hey, everyone's fine and I'd be interrupting. So I better just stand in the corner. And it was just a switch. And it was really, really resourceful to me.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful example of using the limiting belief, flipping it to the new belief, and then creating a different behavior and circumstance for yourself, seeing what happens once you flip it to a new belief. Yeah.
Because there's this connection that I'm discovering about limiting beliefs and actually getting after your vision. And I think you teed this up so well with that story because there was a vision there that you were working towards. And the limiting belief, I mean, essentially this exercise is not just for the purpose of like, hey, I'd like more personal confidence and I'd like to have, more positive self-talk. Like there is some real value in working through your limiting beliefs. I feel like this could be an exercise that can be done on a regular basis. So I don't know if you want to share some about that, Laura, like from your experience, like limiting beliefs and getting after a vision, right? Like,
Yeah, they go hand in hand. The thing that happens, the first thing we work on with our clients is like, let's create that thrilling vision for your future that feels out of your reach to who you are right now. Because that kind of compelling, interesting, energy-giving vision for your future is going to create this gap, this desire for transformation where you're going to change in order to have that vision. And as we notice the difference between where I am now and where I want to be, one of the things that might be getting in my way, likely is getting in my way, is the way that I'm talking to myself, about myself, the way that I'm thinking about other people, the way that I'm thinking about the world. These beliefs, we can think of them like seeds that you plant in the garden of your mind, right? So if your mind is a garden where you're spending most of your time, if not all of your time, when you're awake, you're spending all of this time in this garden and you're planting seeds with your beliefs, with your thoughts, with your inside out that you mentioned did this really well. What are those beliefs and what's coming out of them? And is it getting you towards your vision or is it keeping you from your vision? So if the belief is the seed, then I think of like that belief sprouts roots. Those roots might be like your emotion, your feelings. So for you, Jeremiah, thinking like, I am going to disrupt people in the room was the limiting belief. Like what emotion do you think believing I'm going to disrupt people created for you in those scenarios?
Yeah, I think there's probably some annoyance. So that would be annoying to them. That they were doing something else. It would be, they. I think I would be feeling a little bit of either sadness or unimportance or something along those lines. What that would mean?
Sadness, deflated. It sounds like fear that I'm annoying. So there's like some fear going on. So those are your emotional roots coming out of this belief of I'm going to disrupt people, and then out of that, what's being displayed to the outside world, the plant that's coming up to this above the surface is your behavior, your action. So when Jeremiah feels afraid and feels less than, how does he behave in the room?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so as quieter, not taking up space, not introducing, not engaging, not being, I guess, even authentic with who I am, like all those things. Yeah.
Yeah, and so those behaviors, we can say, okay, are those behaviors helping you get where you want to go? You had a vision to network and to be a sage advisor in that room. Do those behaviors of kind of shrinking back and backing off, and are they helping you get where you want to go? And if the answer is no, which sounds like it wasn't, then the question is just like, okay, what's the other seed? Like, what other seeds are available? Because I could say, what are all the reasons that it might be true that you're disrupting? We don't know. We could maybe find some. But your new belief, which was
someone is desperate to meet me.
Yeah. Someone in this room is desperate to meet me. Someone in this room needs what I have. Right. So we could say, what are all the reasons that belief is true? Like, or could be true, may be true. And it isn't even about comparing the truth of the two beliefs. It's like, what is that new belief going to create in your emotional experience? And then what is that emotional experience going to create in your behavior? And now, like, what's above the surface? What are people seeing? And is it getting you where you want to go?
Yeah.
And the reason why I think this exercise can be done over and over again is what I've noticed is the farther you're reaching towards greater transformation, right? Sometimes during this practice, I feel like we kind of start, I know I did, with like baby steps. I was sort of testing the system. I don't know. Do I really believe in this, whole mental jujitsu, reorientation, seed planting, right? Like I would take little steps. And then those little steps actually gave you back something more than you thought they would. And so then you start to push a little bit farther, right? And we talk about this transformational work in the sense that when you're really looking after or seeking out transformation, you're going to be reaching for something that's beyond your fingertips. And so guess what? Invite, stage left, more limiting beliefs that you didn't even know you had. And you start venturing out, on the edge of what you feel comfortable with. And all of a sudden new limiting beliefs come up. And I'd love to take time, Laura, because I think this was really impactful for me over the last several months, was the process that we took, that you guided me through, starting with identifying what my limiting beliefs were and then how to rewrite that story.
Yeah. So yes, as you said, step one is like knowing what are these beliefs that are, operating under the surface? Like what seeds have I planted in this garden that I may not be so happy with what's coming up above the surface? And I encouraged you and I encourage clients to really write those beliefs down and write down like 50. 50 is a great number. You could keep going. I know I did my first time with this exercise. I started out to get 50 and I wrote 70. And then I was like, I didn't even know I blew past that number. Just start writing out all of the beliefs that you have that you would see as limiting. Again, about yourself, about other people, about the world. And these don't have to be things you think all of the time. So like, I am incompetent isn't necessarily something I think about or think of myself in every sphere. But there are moments and rooms and situations in which I notice like I have an I am incompetent limiting belief going on. So I'm just going to write it down, get it on the surface.
One of my favorite ones you'll remember is I was feeling really stressed and overwhelmed and all the different hats that I wear. And I know other people can identify with this. And I likened myself to an air traffic controller. And I was like, it just feels like if I'm not paying attention or if I sleep for a minute, like the plane is going to go down. We dropped. Do you remember this? Like the limiting belief was like, if I sleep, people will die.
Yeah.
Which was literally like, my children will not have lunches or water bottles or whatever else they need to get.
Die of thirst. Yeah, yes. That's right.
Yes. The plane will crash. Yeah. And we can laugh about it. And I think that's the beauty of actually writing something down is like, we have to look at it and be like, oh, I believe that. What do I think about that? So to write down, if I sleep, people will die. It's like, part of it's funny. It seems absurd. But also there's some validity in saying some part of me is really attaching to that idea. I am experiencing in my body this sense of urgency and panic as if people are going to die. Yeah. And, noticing what that belief is creating.
Yeah. So. And as if I'm alone. That was the big aha moment. Like I'm the only, it's like I'm the air traffic controller and everybody else went to lunch. And I'm the only one, and my plan is the only one that will save people's lives. And that was a really big pivotal shift for me. So after we wrote down, you're right, 50 sounds like an enormous list, but it was quick and easy for me. I could doubled it, I think.
Well, and one limiting belief leads to another. So if I sleep, people will die, as you just explained, like that illuminated like, oh, I believe I'm alone. So I'm alone is a limiting belief. No one will help me is a limiting belief. You just said like, my way is the only way. My strategy is the only one that will work. That's a limiting belief. Beliefs that have things like always, never, only, those are particularly sometimes something to be aware of. Oh, that could be limiting to me if I'm thinking about it in this very black or white way. So yes, writing out those 50 or however many you want to get out onto a piece of paper. And I will emphasize like it is, there is some neuroscience to this exercise that is actually the handwriting process is very important and significant for your brain. So I invite people to write this out by hand versus typing it out on a computer. So you would go through those 50 limiting beliefs, and then you go through another exercise where you're actually taking each of those beliefs and you're writing this process of forgiving yourself for believing that limiting belief. And then writing out my new belief is. And then this is your space where you get to, again, going back to my garden analogy, you get to decide what you want to plant there instead. And instead of asking, is this true or is this false? Is it, is the limiting belief more true? Instead, we're just asking ourselves, okay, what would be a helpful thing for me to believe in this space, especially in light of my vision and what I am up to? Is it helpful for me to believe I am alone? Okay, what would be more helpful? And Laura, like, what would be a new belief for I am alone for you?
I know. I don't remember if I wrote down that one specifically. The one that comes to mind is I'm in Germany and I say together often, which is better together. So not easier together, right? That's not the point or the definition. In fact, we say that often in the more stressful moments. We look at each other and we say better together. Like there is a purpose in doing this together. The other one that was really impactful on that string of limiting beliefs was a vision tied with who I want my kids to be as adults. And do I really want them to just always be dependent on my plan and my way and to exhibit that kind of controlling nature? And so my new belief there was something to the effect of, if I don't step back or if I don't let go, I will impede my children's personal growth.
Yeah. So the new belief, if I could even take that and spin it from a negative, if I don't do this, I will impede them. The upgraded belief might be like, what would you be leaning into?
Right. By letting go, I am like inspiring or motivating personal growth in my kid's life, personal growth or personal responsibility.
Beautiful. So I motivate personal growth and responsibility in my kids' lives would be a new belief that for you to anchor into. And then we can just explore like, oh, if I really believed that, how would it change my emotional experience of interacting with my kids? And how would that impact the behavior that they're seeing come out of me? And is that closer to the vision of what I want? So that exercise, another, take out a new sheet of paper and, write each of these, forgiving yourself and also with the new belief that you want to anchor into. And this is an experiment. These can change over time, but it's an opportunity to give your brain something else to look at other than what has been limiting you. Mm-hmm. Step 3, or sorry, do you have a question?
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So step 3 of the process would be to just take that new belief that you've identified and separately on a new piece of paper, start writing all 50 of those. So now we have a sheet of your 50 new beliefs. And the reason that we're writing these is the limiting beliefs can be very sticky because these are likely beliefs you've been thinking and attaching to over decades. These might be beliefs that started in childhood. These might be beliefs that started in a classroom, and then it's been there hanging out. I'm not worthy. I'll never succeed. I am alone. These may be very well-worn neural pathways. You keep going down the same path.
Well-trodden types.
Yes. So the groove is deep. And what we're doing is we're creating a new path, and it's not going to feel as comfortable or familiar as the old path. But that's what we're doing when we're giving our brain, okay, these 50 written new beliefs to step back and look at. And then the next part of the process, which gets the most protest because it takes the most time, is actually we invite our clients to write out their new beliefs, but with their non-dominant hand. So handwriting your new beliefs with your non-dominant hand. Again, this is a way to activate your brain, the different spaces of your brain that are required to be activated. You can't just do a habitual copy when you're writing with the rough. You literally are thinking about every letter as you are writing the message to yourself. So again, we're creating a space where that starts to become more familiar.
Talk about
how did you
slowing
like that
down.
part of the process?
Right. Talk about slowing down. But you know what? It helped me identify with my, at that time, pre-K son who was still choosing his dominant hand. And so every day at school, it was like, well, do we want to write with our right hand today or our left hand today? So I felt like, you know what? Let me just walk a day in his shoes. And I'd sit there. I actually had to break it down. I think it took me a week. Right before bed, I'd sit down and write, I think like 8 or 10 of them, because it took a long time.
Yeah.
So,
and in many ways isn't even legible.
100%. That good thing that wasn't a requirement. So we are getting close to the end of our time. Are there any final thoughts from Jeremiah and Laura regarding limiting beliefs?
I just love having that list of the new beliefs. And there's a YouTube video, I think, of a little girl standing in front of a mirror, like, I am strong, I am smart, people like me, that type of thing. But and we can laugh at that as a kid, but I think as an adult to really, lean into some of these. I love the word you use, experiment. That's a lot, you guys use that a lot as coaches, but Laura and I have found a lot of resource from that to say, hey, this is an experiment. I'm just going to try this. I'm not saying this is true forever, but for this week, I'm going to try and believe all these things about me and see how my week goes. And I love that, having, being able to develop a list of potential new beliefs and then to try and live into that and see what that does and then adjusting and moving on. And I think it's a really useful thing.
Yeah. And I mean, at the risk of overplaying the garden analogy, when you have these new seeds, they're not going to just sprout up and become the most dominant plant in the garden on their own or overnight, right? It takes cultivating. And that's where you, as the gardener of your mind, get to decide, like, what am I feeding in this garden? How am I cultivating these new beliefs such that they're starting to become the most familiar, the most dominant belief? And that's not one exercise. It's not, once you write it with your non-dominant hand, then you're done. And there's that belief will never show up again. Yeah. But instead, it's just like, okay, I have this belief now that I am not alone. I have a community that makes us better together. And how am I going to cultivate that belief in my life, give it more water and sun, and let it grow? Yeah. And so I always encourage my clients to take their new set of beliefs and really develop a practice around them, daily practice, ideally of reading or incorporating, listening to yourself, record your voice reading your new beliefs, maybe ask a friend to read them to you from time to time, post them on your refrigerator, write them on your mirror. Like, how can we make these more a part of our daily experience and see what happens?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a long process, but it's a rich process, and it's an ongoing one, like we commented earlier. So if you're like me and you would want some help along the way, which was really pivotal in redrafting those limiting beliefs, I highly recommend reaching out to the Novus Global folks. You can find them at Novus, NOVUS.global, and you can sign up there for a free vision call. Let them know that you listen to this podcast. Thanks so much to all of our listeners, and thanks to you, Laura, for joining in the fun.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
We have a few more things to let you know about before we go. Podcast reviews really help us to serve more people and get this information into the hands of the people who need it. Please leave us a review. Even if it's not 5 stars, we welcome the feedback.
And we invite you to let us know what topics you would like to hear more about, or what would benefit the people in your life who you're closest to. We have more resources online. Those resources are designed to help you share this great information easily with people in your life. To access those resources, please visit tricordadvisors.com.
Often we hear from clients that they wish they had talked to us sooner. If that's you, we'd be thrilled to see how financial planning can benefit your life. Email us at contact@tricordadvisors.com, or simply click on the link in the show notes.
This show was produced by Graham Gardner at Model FA. Find out more about how to create a podcast for your financial planning business by visiting modelfa.com. We love creating content that's useful, resourceful, and maybe even a little entertaining. We want to make this mega universe of financial topics and advice applicable and helpful to your life.
Remember, at Tricord Advisors, we are your future's best ally.